So today I'm going to be watching this video. It's called The Finnish School System Facts and Fiction. I've watched a couple of videos about the Finnish school system before. I know it's one of the best in the world, one of the most respected. Even here in Malaysia, they have some private schools that have a Finnish curriculum and Finnish, they call it like a Finnish style of teaching. So even here it's renowned and well known. It's very well respected everywhere. I just want to learn more about it, facts and fiction. As always, you can tell me your experiences, what you think about the Finnish school system. And yeah, let's learn.
Alright, so this is my second attempt at trying to film this video, so hopefully the audio is nice and clear this time. So basically, in this video, I wanted to go over facts and fiction about the Finnish education system. So as you know, Finland is usually mentioned quite a lot in articles or fun facts about, best education systems in the world, and usually Finland's mentioned when we're talking about school systems that consistently rank at the top of the world in these international rankings. And I thought, I've gone to school in Finland from when I was 6 to when I was 18, I guess, was when I graduated high school, so I did the whole shebang before university. So I thought I would go through this article from the Business Insider. Now this one's from 2011, but most of the things are still fairly relevant, and also supplemented a little with this article in Big Think, which is from 2018, so last year. I'm still sometimes thinking it's still 2018 because the years go by really fast, and just kind of relay my own experiences. The first point that they're making here about these amazing facts about Finland's unorthodox education system is that Finnish children don't start school until they are 7 years old, which is a fact. In Finland, I started school when I was 7. Now you can start school when you are 6 years old. So if you're going into first grade, you are gonna go with your year group. So everyone born in the same year is in the same grade. So for example, all people born in 2000 would be in the same class. Now there is a little bit of leeway and flexibility in that if your kid is born in like late of the year, you can usually hold them back and have them go, ooh, sorry, I kicked my whole camera stand. But most cases you would start first grade when you are 6, 7, the year you turn 7 basically. However, I think it was a year or two ago, or like sometime in the recent years, they've changed the rules now, because it used to be that education was mandatory from 1st to 9th grade. That was like the time you have by law are required to be in school, but they've changed that now from 6 to the first year after 9th grade. So you do 1 year after 9th grade as well. Essentially, when I was in school, kindergarten wasn't mandatory, and I only went a few months of kindergarten before I dropped out because I was a little brat and didn't like it. But now it is mandatory. However, I guess you wouldn't classify it as school necessarily per se. You're not really learning much. At least in my kindergarten, we didn't learn anything. It was a like doing social skills and playing with friends and having lunch, nap time, all that fun stuff. Compared with other systems, they rarely take exams.
Yeah, tell me what you think about that one anyway, starting at 7. Being from the UK, generally it's 5 years old where children start. My son started here in Malaysia at 4 years old. He's 5 now. He can already write, he can spell some small words, he can read and things like that. But for me, I actually don't mind. I wouldn't have minded waiting a little bit longer and letting him just be a child and enjoying himself. I don't want to put too much pressure. I don't know if you start earlier, you burn out quicker. I don't know if that's a thing, but tell me what you think about it. You think 7's a good age? Is there any right or wrong age to start, do you think?
All that fun stuff. Compared with other systems, they rarely take exams or do homework until they are well into their teens. Now this one I have mixed feelings about, because usually, at least some articles tend to say that Finland has no homework, and I'm like, what school did you go to? Granted, I went to an international school, 1st to 9th grade, but that still didn't mean that I was doing an international system. We were still following the Finnish curriculum. It was just the language that they were teaching in was in English. So I certainly had homework already starting in 1st grade. Again, it's hard for me to compare because I've only ever done the Finnish education system. We didn't get that much homework, maybe half-hour tops every day. And usually it was like you would have like your stuff you do during class time. If you weren't able to finish it during your class, you would get it assigned as homework, plus maybe like a small little activity. Like it wasn't a lot, but we did get homework, and rarely take exams. I don't know how often other schools tend to take exams. We did elementary, sure there wasn't that many, but we definitely did have exams. We had like spelling tests every Friday and like tests in other subjects every now and then, but they weren't like super, at least I don't remember them being super high pressured until junior high. People took them a little more seriously because in Finland you have to apply to high school and you apply based on your grades, so people try to do well in their exams. Well, those that were super keen on like going to high school. Then here it says there's only one mandatory.
Yeah, so that one as well, that's something I did hear before. People told me there is homework in Finland, so that one isn't, yeah, true, like she kind of says. Tell me your own experience like that. Again, like being from the UK, we don't really get any exams until maybe about, I think it's like 13 or 14 years old. We do get small tests and that sort of thing, but they don't have any real importance. Again, that's something like my son, the school he goes to, 5 years old, even when he was 4, he had like spelling tests already, writing spelling tests. He has to write the words. He's learning 3 languages in school as well, English, Mandarin and Malay. He has spelling tests for each of them every week. I feel like it's a lot of pressure. Like it took a while for him to get used to it. He's doing like excellent now, but I still don't know if long term if that's a good thing or not.
Then here it says there's only one mandatory standardized test in Finland taken when children are 16. So when I was 16, that would have meant I was in, it's really hard to remember, it's been a while since I was 16. 13, 14, 15. That would have been first year of high school. I definitely don't remember any standardized test that I took at age 16. If they're talking about the PISA test, I didn't take that, or at least I have no recollection whatsoever of taking it. If you're Finnish, let me know if you took the PISA exam or not. I would say this is fiction because I don't think we only had one mandatory standardized test, because you definitely do take one at age 18, which is the one you take when you leave high school. There's like this big standardized test all over Finland where you have a certain amount of subjects you're taking and you take like a test at the end of it, and based on that you graduate high school if you pass all of those. And definitely even in elementary school, I remember I took this thing called the Allu-testi, which kind of measured your reading and writing and comprehension skills in Finnish, and it kind of showed whether you were above average, at average level, or below average level. So that was in elementary school. And then in junior high, which was age 13 to 15, we had something called the Makeko test, which was a standardized math test they gave to everybody. Again, like, we never studied for it. It wasn't high pressure at all. It was just you turned up in class one day and the teacher was like, oh, today we're doing Makeko, and we're like, okay. And it didn't affect your grade in any way. You just kind of did them. So yeah, all children.
Yeah, that one I don't remember in the UK having any standardized tests. Only really a test for each subject. Like at that age at 16, I think we're probably doing like 8 different subjects before going on to the higher level ones. You have a test at the end of the year for every one of them, but there's no standardized one. I don't think. It's more just well, I guess they are standardized for each subject, but not one for everything, if that makes sense.
All children, clever or not, are taught in the same classrooms, and that is true. So we don't have any like AP classes, I think are they called in the US, so like advanced placement. So no matter how bright you are, doesn't matter, you're still going to be stuck in the same class with all the rest of your peers. Did have like these teachers specifically designed for children that had a bit of trouble. So if you were not quite up to the level of your peers, you had these special ed teachers that would like kind of help these students. They'd maybe go to them hour or two every day, some hours per week, and they would get a little extra help, but they were still like a part of our class. So for the majority of the time they would still be in our class. They would just get a little extra help every so often. So that is true. 30% of children.
Yeah, what do you think about that? Again, like that's something that's very different in the UK. For instance, for the first 2 years of high school, you just do every subject, and you pick those eight subjects for the next 2 years. And at that time, each subject split into like 9 different levels. So the top class is the smartest people. The bottom class is the least smart on that subject anyway. And it's all very different, each class, how they're taught and stuff like that. I didn't mind it. I thought it was good because you're at a level with similar people. The teacher can go at like one speed with everybody. What about this one? Is there any sort of distractions or disruptions for children who might not be following as quickly as other children? That's the only sort of drawback I would see from the Finnish system, if that makes sense.
True. 30% of children receive extra help during their first 9 years of school. I guess what I can say about this point is that, again, with the special ed teachers, that we did have them in our school. Science classes are capped at 16 students so that they may perform practical experiments every class. So, this is like a so-and-so. It's true that we did practicals every class we had. So, for example, for physics and chemistry, when we started labs, we were in 7th grade, and we did 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. We had like double hour of these science classes, so we would have 1 hour of theory and then 1 hour of practical lab experiments. So each time we had class, we would like learn a theory, learn something about it, and then after that we would do like a practical lab experiment based on the theory we had just learned. So I thought that was like a pretty cool system in that you could kind of like apply what you're learning practically, but it definitely was not capped at 16 students per class, at least in my school. I think we had around 25 students in my class, and yeah, we were all in the labs. We had little lab groups. It says 43% of Finnish high school students go to vocational schools. Alright, so I'll talk a little bit about this. So in Finland there is 2 pathways after 9th grade. So we have something called, I'm just trying to remember the right English word. So after 9th grade you can either go to like the more traditional high school pathway, or you can go to a ammattikoulu, which would be vocational school, I guess, in English, which is more practical hands-on skills. So it's not so much classroom study based, it's more you can, I guess, learn more practical skills and like do more stuff with your hands. And for certain students that's a really beneficial path to make. And whichever pathway you choose, you kind of get like the same level of qualification, which means that next step up, like university level qualifications, both students from high school and vocational school can apply to, again, there's 2 systems. There's the upper vocational school, or the ammattikorkeakoulu, or just plain old university. Depending on, it doesn't matter what you did in high school level, you can still like kind of merge your path, in that vocational school students can apply to university with their degree, and high school students can go to upper vocational school. I don't know what the exact word for it, let me know if you know, but yeah, so it's not like after 9th grade if you choose to go one path you're stuck in it forever. It's quite flexible in that if you choose a pathway you can kind of like merge it and mix and match as you go up, because your qualifications are good enough for whatever path you kind of choose to go, which is nice, because when you're 9th grade, what are you, like 15, you really are, it's very rare to know exactly what you want to do, and having to choose like a pathway at that young, I think, is really inflexible and stupid, to put it bluntly.
I actually agree with that. I've learned about the school system in some different countries, and actually surprisingly a lot of them don't have that flexibility. When you go into one stream or one pathway, you're kind of fixed in that, and I just never understood why, because as you say, like when you're so young, can't really make a decision that how the rest of your life's going to be planned out. Like children change their mind quite regularly, especially teenagers. Doesn't really make sense. So Finland definitely doing that better than pretty much any other country I've seen.
Elementary school students get 75 minutes of recess a day in Finnish versus an average of 27 minutes in the US.
Oh, 27. I mean, that kind of goes into like the work-life balance in work in the US as well, where they get like very little annual leave and benefits. Starts so young, 27 minutes in a day. Like I think in the UK we get like 1 hour for lunch, 2 other 15-minute breaks, so it's like an hour and a half, so a bit more than, this is elementary school as well. Oh my goodness, that's mad.
So let's calculate. In my school we had our first recess was from 10 to 10:15, so that's 15 minutes. Then we had our lunch recess, which was, I believe, 45 minutes. And then we had another recess from I think 1:15 to 1:30 maybe, which is so we have half an hour plus 45, so that would be 75 minutes exactly. Yeah, so every day we would have 75 minutes of recess. That is a fact. School system is 100% state funded. It is true that we have even the so-called like private schools that charge like a very minimal tuition. I think they're still like state funded schools. So also another thing about Finnish schools is that there tends to be no like better or worse schools, in the sense that, at least from what I've heard in the States, there's a lot of segregation, and like people stress a lot about, oh, my kid has to go to the right school, because if you're in the right district you can go to the right school, and if you're in the right school you can they get a better education. But in Finland it doesn't really matter what school you go in, because the base level of education is so good that, and I don't know, like I never felt like there was like any, what is it called, like it never felt like there were certain schools that had a reputation of being a lot better and some for being a lot worse. It felt like at least 1st through 9th grade everything was like pretty similar and equal. I don't know, but it didn't feel like there was this huge like, oh my goodness, you can't go to this school because that school sucks, or this school is the one my kid absolutely has to go to because it's so good. Like it didn't feel like there's that much of like that kind of feeling involved, if that makes any sense. All teachers in Finland must have a master's degree, which is fully subsidized. So my friend she did her bachelor's in like a teaching degree. She told me that there are certain positions that don't require a master, but overall in an umbrella, it is true that you would require a master's, and I think a lot of it has to do in general with how the university system works in Finland. So the Finnish university system is usually a 3+2 system, so when you're enrolled in university you're automatically enrolled in a master's program. So when you go to university you're automatically doing 3 years of bachelor's and then 2 years of master's, all combined into one. You don't specifically apply for master's again, you're just like continue straight onto it, and then you have your big graduation after master's. So that's how it usually works. And it's true that these are subsidized or fully subsidized, because both bachelor's and master's degree in Finland are free for both EU and Finnish citizens. And then the national curriculum is only broad guidelines. So from my experience, or like from my observation of what my teachers were doing in school, I think this is true, because we did have like a curriculum we were supposed to follow, and like certain themes and topics we were meant to cover over the course of the year. But how the teacher decided to execute those or teach those themes, they had pretty much full control over, I think, or from what I like observed. For example, in elementary school, we had my class and then there was another class of like the same age students, and like what we were doing and what they were doing could have been completely different. What we were doing in history and what they were doing in history, even though the topic was the same, we could have been doing completely in a different style. So how we were learning it, the specifics of the material could be completely different, but you're still like covering the same topic and theme, if that makes any sense. So I think that is true.
So who is it? Is it the specific teacher's decision what gets taught then? So was there ever any times in school where you think, like, the next year I want to be taught by that teacher because they have a reputation for teaching better or in a more fun way, or like different things like that? Was there anything like that? Was there ever any complaints for teachers not teaching as well as one other one or something like that?
Yeah, now I'm just going to look at the big think and see if there's any supplementary points that, again, it's mentioning no standardized testing, which we already read about, although this one does mention the national matriculation exam, but it says it's a voluntary test for students at the end of high school, which I don't think is true. Correct me if I'm wrong, Finnish people, but from my experience and what I've like observed and seen, because obviously I did the IB exam, so I didn't do this national matriculation exam. If you don't pass a certain amount of these exams, you don't pass high school, right? Because I feel like there were some students who, for example, they couldn't pass their Swedish exams and they just didn't get their high school certificate, and they'd have to like resit it the next year, or like they wouldn't pass the first time and then they'd have to like redo it the next year because they didn't get a high school certificate because they didn't pass. I don't know, I feel like it's not voluntary. I feel like you have to do it if you want like a high school certificate, but I could be wrong, but that's what my gut feeling's telling me about what I observed. Finns wake up later for less strenuous school days. So this is saying the average time of beginning a school day is 9, which at least in my school the average starting time was 8:30. Sometimes we would start at 9:15, sometimes it would be 10:20, but averagely it would be 8:30. Yeah, it's not like a system where every day is the same from like 8 to 2, 8 to 2 every day. It was like it varied a lot. Every single day was different. So maybe some day you started 8:30 and ended at 1. Maybe the next day you start at 10:20 and end at 3. Like it, every day was a different schedule. So it had a lot of variability.
Why would it be different? Is it like when you've got certain classes, like for me, like for high school in the UK, or at least in Scotland, it was 9 till 3:30. There were 6 periods every day, 6 classes. Some were like double sessions for a class. It was always the same. It was just very, very structured. I don't know why it wouldn't be, so you can maybe tell me why that would be,
Consistent
if you know.
from the same teachers. So in elementary school, yeah, we had our homeroom teacher that would teach us everything except maybe some specialty subjects like music or a language like English, Finnish, foreign language. So you did form a very close relationship with your homeroom teacher. And in Finland, you do address your teacher by their first name. So I know in some places that's considered rude, but I think it also made the connection feel a bit closer or more friendly. So it wasn't such a formal setting. Like you could joke around with your teacher. They would join games with us. Like they would play around with us. Like it was a very friendly relationship that the students would have with their homeroom teacher. Yeah, because like I know I'm even Facebook friends with a lot of my teachers from, not in high school, but at least in elementary and junior high, so like 7 years old through 15. Like you would get very close to your homeroom teachers and your teachers in general, and especially elementary school, I'm still Facebook friends with a lot of them. So obviously I just went to one.
Yeah, that one is interesting because again, like in the UK, it's always you have to like address your teacher by Mr., Mrs., Miss. If you try and call them their first name, man, I feel like you would just get scolded. They would just never accept that. It's quite mad that it's like just to call your teacher their first name, man. I've never heard of anybody do that in the UK. It's never really mentioned like school uniforms. Do you have to wear like a school uniform in Finland, or do you just wear normal clothes? Like in Scotland, we always need to wear like a shirt and tie, sometimes like a blazer top, black trousers, black shoes.
School from 1st to 9th grade, so I only have one experience from one school throughout that whole length of time, and I only went to one high school in Finland, so I only have that one experience from that one school. Obviously things are probably going to be a bit different depending on what school you go to, but that was my generic experience for myself and how my experience applies to these general statements that websites and newspapers and whatever media like to make about the Finnish education system. So hopefully you find that interesting.
Yeah, that was cool. Definitely a good deep insight into the Finnish education system. I've learned a little bit, but it's pretty good to hear from someone who went through it, hear their thoughts, so you can tell me your thoughts as well. Is it the best in the world in your opinion? Like from what she says, it does sound like very good, man. Like it's just about not as much pressure maybe as some other countries. And like whenever you don't put so much pressure on kids, it's definitely where they thrive. So it makes sense to me. I like it. You can tell me your experiences. Thanks.